Welcome to today's walkthrough of our newest version of Xpert BI. It's version 4, and we are very proud to present a set of very interesting new features. So there are 2 sessions today. First session is going through the whys and more of the theoretical backgrounds. And then secondly, my colleague Anja will take you through more of a detailed demo of the new features. And just to remind you, this session will be recorded, and if you have any questions during the session, then feel free to post them in the meeting chat, and we'll get back to those questions as soon as we can, either during the meeting or coming back to you after this session is done. Okay, let's get at it with first a recap of what Xpert BI is. So just to remember, Xpert BI is a data automation and data governance tool. Essentially, in this architecture slide, it automates the process of data from left to right, providing data to your business, whatever those needs might be, ready for visualization, analysis, AI, machine learning, and whatever purpose you would like to have for the data. And the tool is made primarily for the data engineer, but also has a lot of self-service and data governance capabilities, such as a data catalog for the end user. So with that covered, let's then take one step back and look at why do we need data automation for your cloud data platform. So I divide this in a set of challenges and how we solve it using Xpert BI. And these are some of the driving factors behind the evolution of our products and also why we do different directions of the products. So first out is that you need to get the most out of your people you have and the consultants you are available to get handled, and mean that by boosting their productivity, but also not just building things in the first place, but also being able to change, being able to adapt quickly to the rapid changes we always see in the cloud environments. Secondly, today we talk much more about not only the traditional data warehousing and reporting, but also in the direction of AI and machine learning. And we see that still 80% of the work is typically data engineering. So there's a need for the typical data automation parts, also for the more advanced analytics challenges in your organization. So then we think about automation beyond the traditional data warehousing, and typically we talk about data automation for your complete data platform, including data lakes, data lakehouses, in addition to data warehouses. And thirdly, so you would like to start your project small to save costs and be effective at solving your initial business challenge. And then you'd like to scale up, and ideally without having to rewrite any code. So that's what we have put into the solution, so that you can essentially optimize your price performance throughout the lifetime of your data platform, and change the underlying technologies of storage and processing without rewriting the code. And fourth point is that with more and more data becoming critical to our organization, more advanced processes, more data, more complex data types, and more different data sources, it is more and more crucial to have a robust overall solution. So we build as much robustness into this automation as possible. Lastly, of course, key personnel risk can be mitigated with having an automation tool that enforces some level of standardization. It also provides you some guidance along best practices, and also automated documentation that helps you stay updated on everything that is moving in your data platform. And then let's take a next step going into the data governance space. So here again, looking at some of the key things that we have as challenges and how we solve them. So first thing is that one of the main challenges is how to address data quality challenges. And test automation is one of the ways that we can help you detect data quality challenges and also to continuously monitor data quality throughout the processing every day, every hour, every minute you do any data loads. Secondly, of course, being able to use and leverage the data in your daily business decisions. It is, of course, extremely important that users know how to leverage data, how to understand the data, who owns the data, meaning that who can they ask if they have any questions, and how these data can be properly used in a correct way for self-service reports, for supporting their business decisions. So then we have automated documentation and also the ability to tag data with then specific features such as GDPR and other topics. And lastly, in order to be able to change quickly, you have to understand the impact of changes, and data lineage end-to-end is an important mean to achieve that purpose. So then going one step further, let's take a look at the version 4 and the main highlights of that version. So we have 3 key topics, and the first thing is source control integration. So essentially that is part of our focus on DataOps, and as you know, DataOps is inspired by DevOps, agile development, and lean manufacturing. Essentially thinking about the data delivery as a chain from end to end as a process. And source control integration is now fully integrated. It's fully enabled in Xpert BI for both metadata and code. Secondly, we have multi-cloud, both Azure and Amazon Web Services. So this is a big step forward. We have been working a lot with Azure the last couple of years, back since 2019 at least. And now we're taking the full step into Amazon Web Services. And we believe this is a very important step towards giving our customers more freedom of choice, and also being able to expand into multi-cloud environments and have more advanced and complex environments in general. And third point is advanced API automation. And the main motivation behind the API automation is that we see APIs is becoming more and more important to us in every project, and especially as also the source systems, the business applications are moving into the cloud. APIs is becoming the kind of predominant way of accessing data. But not only that, it's also that we see data is from the data platform is also requested by business application, getting data back, and much more advanced new use cases. So let's take a look into each of these cases. And looking at the source control integration, it is about minimizing the operational risk. It is about making the teams collaborate and work together in a more efficient way. And also we want to make this fit into each customer's typical cloud infrastructure and development methodology. So that's why we chose then to support Azure DevOps repos, GitHub, and local Git. So it covers all metadata and code for your data platform. It can now be source managed. And as you can see, this is now added into quite an extensive list of DataOps capabilities that we now support in Xpert BI. Okay, secondly, multi-cloud, Azure and Amazon Web Services. So here we're looking at more enterprise data platforms. We're talking about multi-cloud enablement, and we've seen that technologies such as both SQL Server, Synapse, Snowflake, and Databricks have been key technologies, but then also being able to give more choice to the customer of where their cloud infrastructure and data platform should be running. And the way it works is that, for instance, for Databricks, we can now automatically load data into the native file format of Databricks. And for Amazon Web Services, now Xpert BI can run fully inside the RDS for SQL Server. So as you can see on the top right area, we now support quite a lot of different storage and processing technologies. There are some different levels of support to these, but we have full stack in Azure SQL Database and Azure Synapse dedicated SQL pool, and the Amazon RDS for SQL Server. And we currently have ingest to Azure Data Lake storage Gen 2, to the AVS S3 buckets, to Snowflake and Databricks. Going forward, looking at the API automation, the last main highlights. So this is because APIs can be very tedious and challenging to work with, and sometimes not optimized for analysis purposes. So you get just points of data and not the bulks you need for more the bigger view of data. In addition, of course, it's very difficult sometimes to flatten hierarchies such as XML and JSON, and we see more complex user scenarios. We've talked about that, and we also see that today typically you might have multiple data catalogs, so metadata integration via APIs is also an important factor. So we have 6 different use cases covered. So one thing is that it makes it easy to configure and set up how you're going to get data from APIs. You can flatten out JSON and XML structures into tables. You can also make data available, push data back, which is referred to as reverse ETL. You can make data available for pull, so applications can pull the data when they want. We also make pass-through APIs directly on a database or an application, so we don't need a complete data platform, but just making data directly available from that database application as an API. And lastly, I mentioned the metadata interchange between catalogs using APIs. So with that, we are getting close to the time here, so I'll just give you the highlights of the overall set of capabilities in Xpert BI, and also marked some of the new features we talked about. For instance, AWS coming into the infrastructure, Databricks being added. We discussed the integration with source control with DevOps and Git. And lastly, the API generation and reverse ETL as an example of that. So as the last outgoing point here today, I'm going to just explain you some of the background and history and some of the outlooks going forward. So as you know, we've been working quite for a long time, since 2011, back with SQL Server on-premise solutions, and then since 2019 we ventured into Azure and now into AWS. And you can see here the version 4 on the right hand side. And looking forward, we now look at more capabilities within automating processing Snowflake. We talk about Databricks, and we talk about metadata exchange with the built-in Azure data catalog called Azure Purview. So with that, we are on time for a short break, and we will be resuming at 9:20 with then a more detailed demo from my colleague Anja. And with that, any questions, feel free to write them in the chat on the right hand side.
Okay, then we are back. I will start this technical demo, and I will go through some of the highlights that Tarje mentioned. I'll also give you some more details on other technical features that are available in Xpert BI version 4. If you have any questions during my demo, please submit them to the chat, and then afterwards, if we have time, we can answer, or we will get back to you with the answers. Let's get started. Okay, so the things I'm going to look at to demo is basically source control, explain a little bit about how it works, and show you some examples. And then I'll look at the different options we have for ingesting, publishing, pushing, and doing something called a pass-through of data through the APIs. And I have some other cool stuff that I know a lot of our community has been asking for, so I thought I'll also share that with you today. So let's start with this source control and how it works. You can, if you want, just have a local repository when you're using Xpert BI. You don't have to have Azure DevOps or a GitHub server. You can work locally and still have full source control of your data if you're only one developer. But of course, if you're in a team, you should have a shared repository where you first work local and then you push it to your team. And then the whole team is working on the shared repository, pushing and updating their local. And then when you are ready to go live, you basically publish it to the live database and what we call the database stack for Xpert BI. So the way it actually works is also that the Xpert BI batch, as you know, uses the live solution. So anything you're working on locally will not be touched by the batch solution, which is also something that makes it safer to do new development. These change types 1 and 2, they are explained in the user manual, which I also encourage you to read, because there are quite a lot of different options here. As Tarje also mentioned, we have, sorry, it keeps on moving. We have both metadata and code here. And some things are live and some things are in your repository. So just be aware of the different things you do so that you know you're fully covered by the source control. Let's look at how you can actually do it. So you go into Xpert BI, and in your options, you will have a new setting called source control. If you enable it, it will open a wizard and basically take you through a few steps to enable source control. Here I just have an example where I use Azure DevOps source control. Then what will happen if you go into the application, you get a DevOps pane and you can basically hit commit, and then it will find all the changes that you did since the last time. Of course, the first time you enable source control, everything is committed, and then you make changes and then you have to commit again. Here, when I'm linked to Azure DevOps, Xpert BI will also automatically create a nice structure for the files and group them into the different areas of where your code is. So some things are configurations and some things are SQL code. So let's take a look at how it works in Xpert BI. So basically, I just want to show you also the things with configuration. So say, for example, you're loading data from an XML table, you have some configurations here, right? So these are stored within my local repository. I also have a few objects where I have SQL code. Here, I can basically write whatever I want. I also want that to be covered by the source control, and it is. When I'm done with the feature that I want to develop, I basically I go into DevOps, I hit commit, and Xpert BI will then analyze what are my changes since my last commit. Then it will say, okay, I changed this table. I can then see the differences before I actually choose this and hit, of course, a commit message. And then I hit commit. This time I also want to hit commit and push. So now I'm pushing it to the global repository. Okay. The next thing I want to do is I want to publish it because I know this works. I've tested it thoroughly and I want it to go live immediately. I can then find my table. What type is it? What is it? Okay, I want to publish this. Great. So let's then go into the live, the repos, and then we can look at the history. So here immediately you can see just now I committed this demo commit. I can go into it and look at it, look at the JSON file that I actually committed, and then it's in Azure DevOps. Okay, so that was the basic demo of that feature. So let's look at the next thing. As Terje mentioned, our world is now surrounded by APIs and everybody wants an API. When we talk about APIs here, I also wrote about this in my last blog, we mean web APIs. Of course, an ODBC driver to a database is also an API, but now we're talking about web APIs. So what I will look at now is the new additions, and they are, for some might seem minor features, but they are very much features that you need when you're working with APIs. So one of them is we're extending the features for handling nested files. We're also extending features on how many options do you have when you're loading API data. Then, oh God, something's happening with my slide here. Okay, and then we added support for Databricks and enabling data source API integration with pass-through. I think I'll exit that so it doesn't jump any further. And let's go into demo mode. It's safer than the PowerPoint in this demo. The first thing I want to show you is something that has, when we saw it now, we said, why haven't we done this ages ago, right? This is so nice. I have an XML file that I want to show you. So the XML file, we're going technical here. The XML file is a nested file. What does that mean? It means it doesn't have a table structure. It has a structure where you have some information that are on a top level, but then further down you have some details that are looping within the top level. And SQL Server does not handle that in a table format without you do anything to the file. So how can I fix that? Well, we have now this new feature where I can actually view everything here. And basically, I can just select whatever I want here and create a flat file. So say, for example, I wanted the customer number, status, this column here, and then I want these to be looping. It's actually my mouse, that's wrong. Let's do it like that. Okay, so I also want to add these two columns right here. I then click transform because I want to see what it looks like. Okay, so that looked okay. However, I see it only outputs one row. So how can I fix that? Well, I need to define a root. So if I put my detail node in the root, let's see what happens. Now I get one row for every nested row, which is exactly what I want. The only thing that I think is a bit weird is that my column names are very long. So what I can do is I can basically edit the column name right here. Let's just do it for one to see it. And then you can see here that that column name transformed. And this is how, if I just click use as metadata and OK, then I will have that as metadata, and this is my table definition, and I can now save it. That's the first thing I want to demo. The next thing is a mode that we call raw mode. Okay, so when you're working with a web API, maybe you don't, maybe you have some users that want the raw XML or JSON file. What you can do then is basically connect to the API and just hit raw mode. Then you basically don't get any columns or anything. The destination table, what that looks like is you have one column with your data in it and when it was processed. That's the only thing you get in the raw mode. What it would look like if you would have read it is a lot of columns with some data in it. The next thing is to look at how you can share data. You can publish data through our publication pane here, and we have some different options. So before Tarje also mentioned, we now support Databricks for a lot of things. And then let me go back a second, because we support Databricks on when you're ingesting, for example, APIs into raw mode or whatever, into a table in Databricks. We can set up that to load into Databricks. We can also do it for all types of database data. You can say set my destination and then choose Databricks right here. So then you're loading your data into Databricks, and then maybe you have another application somewhere that needs data, or you want data to be placed also in an Azure database afterwards. What can you do? Well, then you can go into publication and you can export the data. Here I have set up a sample of a Databricks export. I will show you how it's done. So I can basically create any type of export. The source type can be a database, which is then basically a SQL Server database, Synapse database, Azure database, or it can be Databricks. If it's Databricks, I can also choose the same destination types. It can be a file, another database, like an Azure database, Azure Data Lake, or into an API. That means that if you want to load data from Databricks into another cloud application, you can also push data. And this is what Tarje mentioned as reverse ETL. Okay. So the other options we have of sharing data, I'm just going to close some of my panes now. This is the normal thing that happens when you're doing demos. So the publication, we have published to REST APIs. What we have now is a new column here called mode. What does mode do? Well, mode is you can choose normal, which is basically your data warehouse. You're publishing data out to an API, and when somebody pulls it, they pull it from the data warehouse, data that you have curated or it is in your ODS data layer. However, if you have an Oracle source database on premises and you want an API on that, you can basically just import the metadata and say, I want to pass through to source. You don't even have to load it. You can basically just say, okay, this is my new API. I want a bearer token and I want pass through. What will happen then, I'll just do cancel here because I set one up already. When I click all of these different source tables, the API will pass through data from the source out to the API. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Hopefully it plays better with me this time. Okay, so these were just some backups in case something went wrong. Okay, other cool news. Other cool news. Let's take a look at it. So, of course, there are more cool news than 7, but here is 7 of the things that I've picked out. So, Migration Wizard. We've had the Migration Wizard for a long time. However, we've had some of our community saying that we want a lower granularity. I want to migrate only on one object, and I want to see the changes that I'm doing. Okay, so here it is. You can then just click on any SQL object and also see source and target. Okay. Additionally, what has been requested is migration log. So I can choose which migration was done, who did it, what was done, and the source and target. So this is a great extension to the migration wizard, and it also falls good into working with the source control. The next thing, source metadata. So as more and more data sources are API based and you don't really have relational information, what we've added is a possibility to easily create primary keys and foreign keys and actually create a good data model on the raw layer, which is something that we always done in our tool. And here you can do that in a simple drag and drop feature and save it. The other thing that we've added is that when you import new tables from a database, you can preview the changes before loading it or before saving it. And that is also a note that there is a feature that we have removed from Xpert BI now, and that is check source metadata. This feature is replacing it. It's all in the release notes. Okay, so another feature that a lot of our community has been asking for is more date features within the tracking changing. So, for example, a slowly changing dimension. We have now, you can set the initial date, and you can also say you want to close a row when it has been updated, or when it has been deleted, sorry. We've also added a feature for granularity on when you're doing incremental loads. So earlier, this was not a column. It was always the default today, but now you can also have second granularity. Another cool feature is copy version and copy instance. If you've ever worked with something that you want to test a new connection or anything like that, it's a good feature to have. Another feature is regarding the DevOps unit testing. We've added the supported list for connection strings here to be a lot more than it was earlier. Actually, the whole list of the same connections we have in the data sources. And this one, I actually learned about it yesterday. It was so cool. So in the collection, if you have a group, you can actually deactivate a table if something is wrong with it and you still need to run all the other tables and you don't want to do it one by one, you can deactivate. Okay, so I see I have 2 minutes left. I'll just click through more. Okay, so our release notes are I thought that since we're doing this big source control integration that we didn't have that much other features, but I was wrong. So there is a lot of other features that I recommend you to read through, and some of them are highlighted here. A lot has to do with Databricks, of course. We support Amazon now. DevOps testing, I've gone through that already. There's a lot of like smaller features that you should look at if you're looking at API collections, because now we support a lot more, I don't know, detailed on-the-go transformations. We also improved the Swagger when we're publishing APIs, which is the automated documentation. So here is a lot for you to read about, and it will be published once the application goes live. And where can you find it? Well, you can find it at support.xpertbi.com. Here we also have a knowledge base. Inside the knowledge base, you can find the release notes. We also have a possibility to search in our frequently asked questions or join conversations on things that you might wonder about. So this concludes a very quick demo or preview of the features that will be available in Xpert BI version 4. And if you had any questions, then let's see if there were some.
So there was one question that went for Terje. So I can read that out. So for Terje, you mentioned ingest to Databricks native data format. Is this data lake or something else?
Okay, yeah, so I see it. No, it's not. It's not Delta Lake. It's a Databricks own table format. We're also working with integrating with Delta Lake, and that will be very exciting. Also on the Azure Data Lake to have the Delta Lake as an option. Now we have CSV and Parquet as options for format. Hopefully that was answering that question. I think that concludes the time we have available, and please don't hesitate to ask us more questions or contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for attending. Have a good day.